Let me pull up my charts here. If I pull up my charts, I'll be able to, charts, biome percents, shkadink. Okay. Oh, I can barely read that, homie. Good afternoon, gamers. I made a couple charts for Minecraft. I want to talk about how I made them, why I made them, and we can take a look at some of the cool results from all of the data. The first chart is the ore distribution graph. It shows ores, various blocks, and also structures and where you can find them throughout all the different layers of a world. And then I also made a biome percentages graph, which tells you how much each biome makes up your world. Each of these charts is made in a pretty similar way, but I'm going to start by explaining the ore distribution chart. I used a software called Unmined, which I will link below. It's really cool. It allows you to export single layer slices of a world where each block is 1 pixel and you can change what color each block is represented by. So I just assigned every block its own color and exported maps of a world that was 6,000 blocks by 6,000 blocks, and I just went from bedrock to build height. And I did that on 17 different worlds because that's how many it took to get to a comfortable statistical average. Once you've got these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of images, each of single layers, it's pretty easy to make a Python script that counts up all the different colored pixels in a map and tells you how many pixels there are of each color. And the end result is basically a big JSON file that says there's so many million pixels of this hex code, and I just have to know that that hex code represents stone or deep slate redstone ore. To make the biome percentages graph, I used a much similar process. What was the name of the software? I used QBiomes, which I will also link the software to down below. QBiomes lets you view seeds and all the different biomes and where all the different structures are located. I was just using it to look at the different biomes. I generated 459 random seeds, and then I exported really giant maps. I don't remember the size, but I ended up counting 40.5 billion surface blocks. And similar to Unmined, each biome has its own color. So then using a very similar Python script, you just count how many pixels there are of each color, and that tells you there's more plains biomes than Mushroom Island biomes, which is pretty obvious, but when you have the numbers, it's also pretty cool. Once I had the data for both of my charts, I just used a quick JavaScript to turn it into a spreadsheet, and then I pulled relevant numbers from those spreadsheets and sat in Photoshop for a few hours creating the charts that you've been seeing. And since all of this work took hundreds of hours, I probably had a pretty good reason for doing it, and I don't. It's just because I like accuracy, which I think is a little ironic because these graphs don't have that many numbers on them. I've got data to show exactly how many stone blocks versus coal blocks there are at any given layer, but I don't find all of that information to really be relevant. I think almost the entire player base just wants to see, okay, what's the absolute best layer to mine redstone at? And they go to that layer. I also wanted to make charts that weren't overwhelming to use. With the ore chart, you can see 5 data points telling you here's the best spot to mine for it, here's a good range to mine for it, and here are spots where you can find it, but it's not going to be nearly as common as a resource to find. My only gripe with Mojang's ore distribution chart that they released during the 1.18 update is that it shows you how much ore the game tried to generate and not how much is actually there. For example, it is showing you how much ore should be there before caves get carved, before lava lakes, water lakes, oceans, bedrock, and all of the air even. You know, if you look at their chart, it tells you that there is a ton of coal up high, but we all know instinctively that there's not that many mountains that grow that high, so you're not going to find as much coal. So with my chart, I've included air as one of the blocks that I'm counting. For the biome percents chart, you can obviously see each individual biome, but it's also showing you as a grouping on the left side how much of your world is made up by all of those biomes together, which I kind of thought was neat. One of the interesting results I got from the biome percentages chart is seeing just how much solid land is made up by either plains or forest biomes. We all kind of know instinctively as we're running around that it's the most common biome. Just as far as regular plains go, it's coming up on 11%, and then forest is almost 13%. Okay. I'm gonna talk about some other shit. So for the ore chart, you've got a little bit of a legend at the top, kind of showing you what each number represents. You've got all your different ores, blocks, and structures on the left here. That number just to the right is telling you the best layer to mine on, which is also represented by that white dot. That way you can just look at the left side. You don't have to bother trying to read the graph. You can just see the layer. I tried to make it accessible. One note is that I didn't bother including anything above layer 256. I know the build height is 320, but no land generates above 256. So, well, I guess 257, whatever. Another interesting comparison between Mojang's ore chart and my own is the coal distribution. You can see on my chart, Y level 45 is definitively the best layer to mine for coal. You're gonna run into the most coal ore for every stone block that you go through. And that's just because above that level, the oceans start to cut out most of the coal, and above Y level 64, there's not enough land mass. A lot of players, including myself, get confused looking at Mojang's chart, and we go mine at Y level 16 for coal, and some even go higher up to this second block of ore generation. There's just not enough land mass up at those levels to mine in. The geo distribution is really interesting to me as well. Negative 44 is the best layer to mine at, and it tapers off slowly all the way up until Y equals 24. Some fun little tidbits for the biome percentages chart. I created the colors for the left group categories by averaging the colors of all the biomes that were in that category. And it works out pretty well, except at the very bottom. That's really it. I just wanted to show the charts, talk about how I made them, why I made them. Please let me know if you like them, or if you even plan to use them. That would be cool. If you have questions, if you want me to pull any specific data, if you wanted to know what percentage of blocks are obsidian at layer negative 30, I can tell you that. All right, bye. Hold that thought, actually. Hold that thought for just a second. I was just pulling this percentage of blocks that are obsidian at layer negative 30, and while looking at the numbers here, I've noticed some strange generation. Every other layer has a spike in the amount of obsidian, and it's in a standard distribution curve. It's anywhere from 10 times as much to nearly 100 times as much obsidian. I cannot figure out where this is coming from. I don't know what structure is causing this. If you have a theory as to what structure or generation could be causing this, I would love to hear what you have to say. I went in and pulled up a single layer slice image for layer negative 24 from one of the worlds. And I've circled here where there is obsidian. You can see this tiny little patch here in the middle. And down here you can see a larger patch of obsidian, but it's certainly not enough to account for 11,000. I'm not sure where all the extra obsidian is coming from. If you have any thoughts or ideas, I would love to know what you think.